everybody, and welcome to a very sunny Ed's boat. The weather has been brilliant. I mean, we've had prolonged sunshine for weeks and weeks and weeks now, and hardly any rain. It's been really good. One or two of the canals have been complaining of low water levels, but the Coventry Canal, no, it's all fine. Ideal boating weather, you might say. Well, no, not really. People are just lazing the day away on the towpath in the shade. It is a bit hot to be stood out in the back of a boat all day, but everybody really is enjoying it. It's slowed things right down, and the vibe on the towpath is one that's very, very relaxed and just enjoying this nice weather. We don't get sunny weather that often, but this has been a bit of a problem for me. I was supposed to be painting the boat and varnishing things, but the outside of the boat is just too hot to paint. You can't put paint on it. It just goes off straight away. It's not a good thing. And the varnish, well, that's the other way. You put the varnish on and it just takes forever to go off. So I've been racking my brains, what can I do about this? So I thought, you know what? Let's just cut some holes in the boat. Well, it's a beautiful day and I am moored up on the towpath again. There I am, look. I've got my generator out and I'm under some nice shade of the trees just to keep me cool a bit, and I'm going to cut some holes in the bottom of the door there. I'm going to cut a hole on that side and then one the other side as well, and that is going to make the holes for the vents. Need the vents for airflow for the stove and the cooker and all this sort of thing. It's one of the requirements you have to have. I've got my generator to run it all today, and I've mopped the deck down because it's so hot. I've just mopped the deck down just to damp down any dust or whatever, because I was very, very worried that I'd set fire to things as I'm cutting with a grinding disc, and this bit of the grass here is nice and green, so hopefully that won't catch fire. See, in the marina the grass is so dry, I was worried that if I cut anything hot or sparks went anywhere, that I'd set fire to people's canvas covers and the grass and this sort of thing. So I'm going to do it out here. So without further ado, I suppose I'll fire the generator up and we'll start cutting some holes. And there we are, 2 holes cut in for the vents, and swabbing the deck down and making it all wet did a really good job of arresting the sparks. They didn't bounce off, they just hit the water and stayed. And I put just that bit of off cut of wood up the inside just to stop the sparks going inside. So next thing to do is to put the wood liners on, and I'll show you those in a moment. But also I've got to sit down and do no more hot working now for an hour or two on fire watch, just in case a spark went into a corner somewhere. I need to sort of hang around for a bit, or a good while actually, and just investigate all the nooks and crannies just to make sure that I haven't set anything on fire, and then I'm okay to move on. Well, the holes are cut, but they leave a horrible jagged sharp edge when you cut them with a grinder, so just going to quickly run them round with a file. Okay, now it's time to fit the 2 sheets of plywood on. I've already cut these to size, 18mm thick, and I've put a couple of coats of varnish on the inside to weatherproof it anyway, but I'm just going to temporarily screw them to the door. I've drilled some holes in the door ready to take these screws, and I know they fit already. Took them off actually just to cut the holes. I'm going to put them back on now, just screw them on quickly so I can mark around it, draw around the hole, and drill the hole through the wooden part as well. It's just a question of draw around it with a felt tip now, ready to cut out, and then do the same on the other side. Well, it is later, much later. The weather has been beautiful. In fact, this summer has been fantastic, but it's been very, very hot, which is great for boating, but it is not good for varnishing. Now, I've put the plywood sides on, sanded them and varnished them with 2 coats of varnish. The first coat really brought the grain of the wood out, so I had to sand back smooth again and put a second layer on, but that's turned out really well. All the edges have been sealed against the weather with 2 coats of varnish. The hole's been cut in. Sorry about the shaky footage with that. I had to run the engine to charge the batteries up. So that's all done on both sides. And what I've done is I've screwed it in. Now I've drilled 6 holes, all the way down the door, and countersunk those and put screws in, and then just put some car body filler over it to cover it, and now I'll sand that back and repaint it, ready to finish. The vents I'm going to put on are these chrome pressed vents that will just fit over there, and it should look nice, but they're not particularly flat. The pressings are pretty rough actually, so I'm having to sort of dress them up so they make a nice flat seal against the side, because this is going to have to be weatherproofed. So the next thing to do is just make sure that these are all sitting nice and flat, put them onto the door, mark the holes and drill them ready to take the screws. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and the sun is so hot today that it's unbearable to work out in it. You just start sweating straight away. So I've rigged up a temporary sunshade just out of an old bed sheet there. There is a bit of a breeze today which is helping, but yeah, I've had to put a sunshade up there just to keep the sun off me while I'm working. Well, I've started sanding down where the filler was, where the screw heads went in, ready for painting. I've sanded the rest of the door as well, just to flatten it down, just to key. I'm not trying to take any paint off, you understand. I'm just trying to flatten it down so the next layer of paint looks pretty good. Just got a little bit to do at the bottom there, so I'm just going to finish it off with my little sander and get ready for painting. The next thing to do is to get a bucket of very, very cold water and wash the doors down. These doors have been in the sun all day and they're a bit warm, so to keep the dust down I'm going to wipe them down with a wet cloth, and hopefully that will cool the surface down enough for me to paint, because it's been just too hot. The surface of the metal is just too hot to paint, so I'm hoping this will cool it down. Well, the trick has paid off. The door's not cold, but I doused it down with cold water a couple of times and let it dry out, and it's cooled it down lovely. You couldn't actually touch that, it was too hot to touch really, but it's cooled it down nicely. So I'm ready, like I did before, to just get a roller and start painting. Right, while the paint is drying on the outside, I can get on with the business of marking up the holes on the inside. Now what I've done is I've moved the vent over slightly this way, so the two screws from the outside vent and the inside vent don't clash. So I can screw them together without fear of the two screws getting in the way of each other. I'll just mark those up, ready for drilling the pilot holes. It's 24 hours later and the paint has dried nicely on the outside of the boat. It's dried all last night and then baked this morning in the sun. I've just screwed on the vents on the outside. The screws didn't clash between the inner vent and the outer vent, so that worked out really well. And if I open the door, a nice shiny varnished piece of wood with the vent on the inside as well, 80mm thick, and that has made the door nice and solid and it doesn't ring and make a horrible noise. Now the door's not finished, there's a lot more to do. I've got to put some padlocks on it, and I'm going to do some panels here, some maybe oak edging or something like that, and there'll be some sort of canal artwork in there. I haven't made up my mind what I'm doing, but the door's nice and solid now, don't make a horrible rattle, got the vents on it, and if you go inside the boat, which I won't do at the moment because the lighting there is not very, very good, they look really good actually, and by the time I finish putting the panel work on and the artwork on, yeah, it's going to look really impressive. Please excuse the mess from inside the boat. So that's another job out of the way, putting the vents in. Well, that's about it for this episode. I've put the wooden liners on and the vents in on the back door, a job that needed doing. Plenty more work to do on that though. We'll cover that in a different episode. Right, in the next episode, not really sure what we're going to be doing, but we need to have a work catch up inside, don't we? So I'll probably do that, but I'm going to be out of the country for a couple of weeks, so you'll have to make do watching other people's videos until I get back. Then we'll have a catch up on the work. So in the meantime, take care and I'll see you soon.